Ẹ má bínú, ẹ jọ̀ọ́ ṣé ń gbọ́ mi. Wow. Show. Please, I really apologize. Even right now, things need to be sorted, but somehow I've found a workaround for us to finish this session. Now, well, something else on Monday. It was sound. Sound is better now because we had to fix some things. Now we're having this other stuff, but before Friday, it'll be better. Thank you very much for understanding. I'm trying to remember where we left off. Oh, Jake stepped down. Mr. Jake. But I'm just trying to get the other account up. So if I need to monitor something, I'll usually monitor it there. Oh, there's an issue there as well. Anyway, Ẹkáàbọ Takoroso. Bolaborode. Can anybody remind? I think I have an idea, to be honest, but just in case, I want to make sure we're on the same page. Anybody? I'm still here. I thought it's better to move on new. Oh, Jake's man. Thank you, sir. Name, Yoruba name. So I was saying that there's a video on, maybe I should even do that. Maybe we should even listen to that video. Maybe to even answer all the things I want to say. Because it's shorter and it might be a bit more, it's going to be more succinct than if I start, I'm going to be quoting several books. So might as well just, so let's do this, right? Let's listen to, I'm going to play a video produced by yours truly. Just give me a second, please. What's the story behind the name Yoruba? I published this video last year, and I think it's going to answer some of the questions that you're asking. It's about 5 minutes long, so I think we should have that before I say any other thing. Okay? So that we'll have a basis. All right, let's get into it. Okay? Can everybody hear me? Are we good? Let's just be sure that the audio is good, everything is perfect, then we can get into it. Okay, 1 second. Let me set up the other device. Okay, I think we can do this. I think we're good. So I'm going to play this video. It's titled "What's the Story Behind the Name Yoruba?" It's on Busiori's YouTube channel, but I think it's going to really get us into some of these things, and move on from there. Okay, so let's get into it, and then we'll talk afterwards. And thank you for the gifts. Adekomi, but thank you for being here. Thank you, and for the gift as well. All right, let's get into this. Take a listen. You've not been hearing everything. Oluwa Olodumare. It's been playing. Oh, Jesus is Lord. I've seen it. I see the issue. Sorry about that. Let's rewind. Following the story behind the name Yoruba. Ẹkáàbọ, ẹ̀yin èèyàn mi. Today, we're exploring the story behind the name Yoruba. What does it actually mean? Where did it come from? Get ready to uncover fascinating historical nuggets and linguistic twists and turns. It is true that we are called by different names in different parts of the world. The names Aku and Olukumi or Lukumi have been used to refer to the people also called Yoruba. But where did that name come from? Now, you might have heard that the name Yoruba was a recent invention that didn't apply to the entire ethnic group outside Oyo before Bishop Ajayi Crowther's decision to call everyone Yoruba. Some even say it's a curse word from across the Niger, while others are convinced that it's a product of a colonial hangover. But let's rewind the clock way back to the 17th century. We're talking 1614 to be exact. A scholar named Ahmed Baba penned a manuscript called Miraj al-Su'ud. This text, one of the earliest known references to the Yoruba, lists them alongside other West African groups like the Mosi and the Gomba. So contrary to the rumors being peddled around, the name Yoruba was already in circulation, and this was centuries before any colonial whispers. So where did it come from? Buckle up, because we're about to explore some theories. One theory championed by Sultan Mohammed Bello links Yoruba to a descendant of the biblical Noah named Yarub. Another theory by T.J. Bowen points to a phrase, Yoruba, and then there's the idea that it all stems from Yolaba, a Mande term for the Niger River. Interesting, right? But here's the catch. These theories don't quite hold water when you stack them against Yoruba traditions and historical evidence. Now, enter Richard F. Burton, a 19th century explorer and writer. He suggested in his book Abeokuta and the Cameroons Mountains that the Yoruba might have evolved from Orioba, which translates to the head king. This name, according to Burton, was initially used for the entire Yoruba-speaking community, but later became associated specifically with the Oyo subgroup during its imperial peak between 1650 and 1750, before being used broadly again for the entire ethnic group. While it is true that the different Yoruba subgroups are called by their unique names like Ife, Egba, Ijebu, Oyo, Owo, Ekiti, Okun, Igbomina, and so on, the umbrella term Yoruba has been used for the entire ethnic group long before the 17th century, when Oyo attained its peak as an empire. Therefore, it is not a recent invention by Bishop Ajayi Crowther. Here's a document that was published in 1813. The document mentions the group name Yoruba and other names by which we were called, like Nago or Anago. Here are other names by which Yoruba are known. They often use phrases like Omo Kaaro or Jire, meaning the people who ask good morning, did you wake up well? This highlights the emphasis on respectful greetings. Another common term is Omo Odua, translating to the children of Odudua. This references Odudua, the revered ancestor and progenitor of the Yoruba people. They also call themselves Olukumi, meaning confident, an endearing term that's also sometimes shortened to Lukumi in parts of South America. Professor Akinwumi Ogundiran offers some fascinating insights in his book, The Yoruba, A New History. He talks about how the Nupe people, known for their historical interactions with the Yoruba, used the terms Eyagi or Yarbanchi to refer to the Yoruba people as a whole. Ogundiran suggests that Yoruba might actually be rooted in this Nupe term, Yarbanchi. He proposes that it is derived from Yagba, the name of a major Yoruba subgroup. The suffix chi in Yarbanchi means the one who is. So it essentially translates to a Yagba or Yoruba person. The Yagba's historical prominence, particularly in their interactions with the Nupe, could explain how their name evolved into the broader term Yoruba. Fascinating, isn't it? So there you have it. The story behind the name Yoruba is a journey through history, language, and cultural interactions. While the exact origin remains somewhat ambiguous, the name has been used for centuries to represent the rich and diverse cultural identity of the Yoruba people. It is clear that this name holds centuries of meaning. It represents the vibrant tapestry of a people, their heritage, and their enduring presence in West Africa. Adebusuyi lorúkọ mi. Thanks for joining me on this linguistic adventure. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video. And if you have your own thoughts or theories about the name Yoruba, drop them in the comments below. Let's keep the conversation going. See you in the next one. All right. I felt it would be better to actually play that because many of the things I wanted to quote were in that video already. 1 second. Okay, good. All right, so a lot of things I wanted to say already mentioned in the video. There are many theories, and I'm very wary of saying there's only one. So when someone came here the other time and mentioned Yoruba, it's one of the theories, and it's from Richard Burton. And the book is here actually, but it's also this topic. The book is called Abeokuta and the Cameroons Mountains. Cameroon spelled Camarons. Okay, but there's something else I think I should do here. Let me read to you the argument of Professor Stephen Banji Akintoye on this same matter, and I think it's going to help all of us understand what this is all about. Well, give me a second, please. On board. Okay, we're good. So let me read to you something from about the name Yoruba by Stephen Banji Akintoye. I'm not going to read everything because of time. We're just going to jump to a particular paragraph. It says here that in the literature of the Atlantic trade, 16th to early 19th century, we see some inclusive names for those members of this nationality that were involved in the trade, but Yoruba was not one of such names. In some parts of the New World, some of them were identified with subgroup names such as Eo or Eyo or Oyo or Iba, meaning Egba, and so on. Others were identified in other places with group names coined from their cultural peculiarities. Names such as Aku, coined from phrase Eku, which occurs in most Yoruba greetings, or Lukumi, which we mentioned earlier in the video, apparently from the affectionate Yoruba phrase Olukumi, my dear friend, or confidant. Still, another identifying group name in some parts of the New World was Nago, probably derived initially from the name of the far western Yoruba subgroup Anogo, from whom some of the earliest Yoruba entrants in the Atlantic slave trade probably originated. Yet, we also find that the name Yoruba existed all that time. In the present state of our knowledge, the basic outline of what we know about the name Yoruba would be as follows. First, please pay attention. First, there is some evidence strongly indicating that the name Yoruba was in use in parts of the West African interior in reference to a people before the 16th century. That is, though the name did not occur in the records of the transatlantic slave trade in the New World or in Europe or in the West African coast, it did exist in the West African interior, in the upper Niger territories in the Western Sudan, where the Yoruba had been going in large numbers since about the 5th century AD as long-distance traders. A written use of the name in reference to the group appears in a book published in Timbuktu in the Songhai Empire in 1615, written by an indigenous Songhai Arabic scholar, Ahmed Baba. That's the book I read earlier. It's called Miraj al-Suhud. It was published in 1615, and the name occurred in that work. So it says here that a written use of the name in reference to the group appears in a book published in Timbuktu in the Songhai Empire in 1615, written by an indigenous Songhai Arabic scholar, Ahmed Baba, author of many books, probably West African scholar before the 19th century. The name Yoruba was very probably in use there for the group before Ahmed Baba's time. Secondly, it is known that during the era of the greatness of the Oyo Empire, from the 17th to the early 19th century, the name Yoruba was used by many peoples in West Africa, as well as by some sections of the group themselves, as a sort of second subgroup name for the Oyo subgroup. Thirdly, I'll explain all these things, by the way. Thirdly, there is good evidence that the name became common in Western Sudan in general. By the way, I've said this several times. I'm sure if you've been coming here, you'll know what I'm about to say right now. When you see the word Sudan here, they're not talking about Sudan, the country you have right now. At this time, there was no Sudan called. Careful of in studying history. Names like Ethiopia, names like Sudan, even names like Egypt. All right. Ethiopia was bigger than what you have. What you have right now is a country that used to be called Abyssinia, and that has now adopted Ethiopia as the name of their country. Okay, the same thing with Sudan. So the people are now bearing the name Sudan. They were part of Sudan, but you were also part of Sudan. So that part was called Western Sudan. Okay, so outside anywhere will be called Western Sudan from the perspective of the Arabs. Where were we? Thirdly, there is good evidence that the name became common in the Western Sudan in general as the name definitely for the people who now bear it, the large Yoruba nation inhabiting the country south of the Middle Niger. The information of this is from the travel journal of the English explorer Hugh Clapperton, the first European to visit the interior of Yoruba land. In 1825 to 1826, Clapperton's team traversed Yoruba land from Badagry on the coast through Egbado and Oyo towns and reached Oyo-Ile. Then they crossed the River Niger and reached Sokoto. In their general travel through these interior countries, they first came in contact with the name Yoruba. In Sokoto, Sultan Bello of Sokoto talked with Clapperton's team at length about the people whom he, Sultan Bello, called the Yoruba, the people south of the Middle Niger, who were regularly coming to do a lot of trade in Hausa land. Following the Clapperton exploration, the name Yoruba became gradually widely known among European traders and missionaries on the West African coast as the common name for the people who had been known in the Atlantic world by various other names for about 3 centuries. The name then spread in the hands of the Christian missionaries working on the coast and other parts of West Africa. Then it was received and spread by the freed slaves returning home from the New World and Sierra Leone, and thereafter by the generality of the growing class of literate Yoruba, and then by all the Yoruba people. Thus, we do have hundreds of years of history of the existence of the name Yoruba in the history of the Yoruba nation. Still, it is important to ask the question whether there is any indigenous Yoruba tradition concerning the name Yoruba in the group's early history before the 19th century. Some indigenous traditions answer that question in the affirmative. While doing research in Yoruba history in the 1960s, we're getting to some deep waters. I don't have to explain everything we read so far. I think we got it right. The idea basically is that let me just quickly break it down. Number one is that the word is not a new word. We have a written record from 1615, and we read it earlier from that video. It's a book called Miraj al-Suhud, where Ahmed Baba mentioned Yoruba as one of the groups in West Africa. We also said that the name has been used by different people in parts of West Africa to refer to the folks in the interior. So it was not Igbo people that came with that name. We were talking about people in there. And it also appears that from Western Sudan, it was used for the entire group, not just for Oyo. So what we can tell essentially is the fact that the name was in use before the rise of Oyo. Oyo did not become an empire until the 17th century. Right? Oyo became an empire in the 17th century. The name was in use before then. So the idea that Oyo originally owned that name is not true. What you can say, and which will be true, is the fact that it became synonymous with Oyo after the rise of Oyo itself. You see, so Oyo's rise somehow gave prominence to that name, so it became Biadakbe for that subgroup. Although the subgroup also has a name. For instance, during the transatlantic slave trade, the people that were caught in Oyo were not called Yoruba. They were listed as Oyo. The ones that were caught as Egba, they were listed as Egba. They didn't write Yoruba in the list. Although much later, as they coalesced, they started having this thing where they now start identifying themselves. They use the word Yoruba. Like there's a document from the it's 18th or 19th century where the word Nogo and Nogo Yoruba began to pop up. But the idea basically is that the name existed before the rise of the empire. The people of that empire used that name, appropriated it, and became almost synonymous with that particular subgroup of Yoruba people, and then eventually became something that I think with everybody afterwards. So after the empire fell, that name is still applied to everybody, just like it was before the empire rose. All right, having said that, let's now get into some of these things. This is called About the Name Yoruba by